And welcome to everybody who's dialed Fox Local app and our streamers. We appreciate you logging on. Do we buy? Do we sell? This real estate market has been absolutely crazy for about the better part of the last year. And we got Vince Arcuri with us. Welcome back.
Hey,
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
It's been a while. Life good?
Yeah, life's fantastic.
You know, they laugh. I'll be the first one to rip open my tie and yank off my jacket when I leave the studio. You look like you should be the news anchor tonight.
Well, I just put it on because I just got here.
I know. I feel underdressed now. We appreciate you coming over.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of things to talk about, but we know a lot of you guys have some real estate questions, so we're going to try to ramble through as many as we think that you guys will have. One of the biggest, though, which is really interesting, this $400 million, what's $418 million settlement regarding commissions fees. That literally, I know you told me this earlier, this is going to change the way we sell houses, we buy houses. This is a big deal.
It is big. I think most consumers, most real estate agents really aren't even prepared for it, but it is definitely some major changes coming. It takes effect the 17th of next month, so it's right around the corner. So now's the time to really educate yourself on what to expect.
We're going to talk about that impact here in a second, but I want to take a look at some market trends because this is really interesting. We're kind of spoiled here in the Tampa Bay area because we've done really well, but take a look at this. So these are single-family homes. I know everybody asks us because there's so many numbers that are out there right now.
Right.
This is where our market is right now, year to year. So in April, I found this fascinating. We were up 5.5%. This is for those of you who know, Tampa, St. Pete, and Clearwater. Everybody's doing really well in April. May, we kind of saw something coming, and the bottom drops out in June.
Yeah, you really see a lot of signs out there. The inventory is up. Really is. I mean, I would think that people would be thrilled over that because it's been such a seller's market for about 4 or 5 years. People bidding wars and everything that they were getting into. Now's really the time to jump in and buy something.
So do you think, what's your best guess on what July will look like? Are we going to see a further drop here?
I really don't anticipate that. I mean, Tampa and Florida in general is insulated. I mean, I think I saw a statistic today that I think in 2020, we had 17 million people in Florida, and now we've got like 23 million. So the builders are, most of the, I heard somewhere that 400,000 houses or 40,000 houses are sitting empty from builders in other states. But Florida, there's so many people moving here that I think we're just going to feel a mild.
No, you're right. It's great because for those who are selling, you got plenty of buyers coming. But for those who are here and are tired of the traffic,
yeah.
I mean, there's a price for that growth. You know, we're seeing it on the impacts everywhere. And you're right. I think it was just last week, we crossed that 23 million mark. So we're way ahead in third place now, second only to California and Texas. I think the number I saw was about 350,000 are still moving in every single day to Florida.
Right, so that excess inventory is going to get eaten up. I think even a marginal decrease in interest rates, and you'll see a brisk real estate market. You'll see it take off.
Where
again.
we are now, roughly on that 30-year fixed right now.
Where you'll see them around. Well, depending on your credit, but
right.
between
Best
6 and 7%.
Okay, which is still high.
Yeah,
I mean,
compared to 3%, just
right.
a few years ago. Yeah, absolutely.
So I want to show you another graphic here because I found this fascinating too. When we talk about home sales by price, this is really interesting. You sent me this and you said, take a look at this. Now, if you were to say, Mark, where would you guess the biggest difference in prices of home sales would be? I would have guessed the 250 by 400K, but no, but they're down almost 22%. And if you look at the houses that are priced over $1 million or more, they're still up 7%.
It is amazing.
That's crazy to me.
It's amazing to me. Some of the luxury sales that we've had this year, they're cash buyers, and I think there's a minimal impact on. I wish I knew where all this money was coming from.
Well,
because
shouldn't we all?
The luxury home buyers are still paying cash. I haven't had a jumbo finance loan since I can remember, and we've sold quite a few luxury homes. They are cash. So I think the people that are being impacted are typically the lower price points where people are more dependent on how much down and what's my payment going to be. And that interest rate now impacts those payments because they're double what they were just a few years ago.
So I know you get this all the time, but I've got to ask you, I've got to sell my house. I know it's a bad market or maybe be a decent market. What's the number one thing, the best thing you could do if you really need to sell your house?
Well, the biggest things, obviously you reported on the insurance industry and how that was impacting real estate. So the age of your roof, the age of your air air conditioning unit, hot water heater, getting a 4-point inspection on your home. Those are the biggest things, because those aren't fun things to do. When you're remodeling, when you buy a home, you want to spend the money remodeling the
we
interior.
all think people, somebody will want to put their own stuff in there, but nowadays it's not working that well as much.
Well, you have to look at it this way. If you can't get insurance on the home because of the age of the roof, so that's some of the concessions that we're really seeing with the sellers is they're giving concessions. They're putting new roofs. They're putting new air conditioning units, whereas when you had the escalation clauses a few years ago, people were bidding over asking price. Sellers were giving nothing. Now they're giving everything. If you're a buyer, this is really the time to buy a home.
And I'm glad you mentioned roofs, because that's such a frustrating thing for me. I did my roof, 7 or 8 years ago, 30-year roof, have all this on there, but I'm hearing, not mine, but I'm hearing a lot of insurance companies will not even insure a roof that's older than 10 years. That in my mind should be criminal.
It's shocking. There's changes coming next year because there's been some legislation passed, but Florida always seems to be hit the hardest. Just a few years ago, it seems like we had the sinkhole. Everybody had a sinkhole. Now that the litigation is dried up on sinkholes, suddenly all the sinkholes stopped.
Yeah, for sure.
So it depends. The lawsuits start. I think a lot of it's triggered by really silly things like that, where somebody, I don't want to call out a particular industry, but they can sue somebody, and all of a sudden this becomes a big topic.
It's
now
been
the
well
insurance
reported.
companies are getting
Well reported.
sued, and now they're going to protect themselves.
No doubt. Let's take a quick break. So we're going to talk about the big changes in commissions that are coming, whether you're buying or selling a house. That's coming up. We're also going to talk condos and townhouses for those of you who are still interested in getting into the market or maybe going that way. So sit tight. We're back with Vince Arcuri after this. Meantime, we got a live look at Sky Tower radar. A few storms popping up, especially coming into the southern quarter of Pinellas, just passing out over St. Pete, southern St. Pete Beach. Don't move. We're right back in a second. All right, welcome back to Fox 13 Unscripted, as we are streaming for you live here just about 7:12 on this Thursday. Here with Vince Arcuri, head of realestate.com. Welcome back. So glad to have you with us here.
Great to be back.
We're talking about the market trends right now for those condo owners and buyers and townhouses. We want to go through some numbers here and just show you a little bit of this. So this is from Florida Realtors. Here's where we are right now. In April, we started seeing the drop. In May, about 6% off, and then this is from year to year. And then June, almost a 20% drop over last year in condo and townhouse sales. This is the Tampa, St. Pete, Clearwater metro area. Does that surprise you?
Yeah, it really does. I remember a year ago looking for a client in Bayshore, and there was literally like 2 places for sale. And now you look, the floodgates are open. I mean, if you're a buyer, you really have pick of the litter.
Well, I would only think that's going to get better, because everywhere I turn around, I see another condo building going up somewhere. And how many times do we say to us, how can we sustain this?
But once again, getting back to what we said on the first segment, the amount of people that are coming in,
here.
and a lot of those are retirees. They don't want to mow the yard. And they're looking for the newer units now, because obviously we talked about the issues with older buildings and the new stringent requirements that they have to go through, which is pushing up their monthly cost and
the upgrades
So those are just, I think condos, they're usually the last thing to fall, or the first thing to fall and the last ones to come back. But it also gives you a great opportunity as an investor to buy these units when the prices are down.
So when we do go to buy and to sell, this $400 million lawsuit that basically threw out the idea of the 6% commission, right?
Yes.
They basically said, I don't want to use the word collusion, but they basically said, no, you can't do that. You can't force this on them. So how will this go forward? How will the commissions work for agents and for buyers after it goes into effect in August?
Oh, first of all, I want to say the lawsuit was just ridiculous, because the real estate agents, there is no fixed price. Every real estate agent charges something different. That was something projected different, but the lawsuit is the lawsuit. Now on the 17th of next month, we're in it. The biggest change for consumers that they need to understand is that there's no longer, like if you're buying a home now, your agent that you hire to work with you to buy a home, they can see what their commission was, what the split or what the co-broke was. The other agent would put in MLS, if you bring me a buyer, I'll give you 2%, 2.5%, 3%, whatever the commission is. And we split whatever we got usually with the other agent. So what's happened is that was part of the collusion. They want that removed from the MLS. They don't want the other agent to be able to see, because that was part of the collusion and the price fixing. So that has been completely eliminated. And one of the things that's going to be different, I think people said, oh, this is great. It's great for sellers, but now the buyer is going to have to sign a document to even look at a property. Real estate agents are no longer allowed to show a property without a written agreement. And that agreement's going to say what that agent's expected to get paid. Now, you still could make an offer and ask the seller to compensate your agent, but they're not required to do so. So in those particular instances, the buyer now, the cost of buying a home is now gone up because they're going to have to compensate that agent. Or let's say the seller's...
Whereas typically the seller was paid for that.
The seller had always paid for that, and they still can, but we're no longer allowed to really disclose that. It creates a lot of work because now the agent's going to have to call the listing agent on every showing and say, hey, are you cooperating with other agents? What's my fee? And you're going to go through this nightmare. So I think it's going to be a nightmare. It's really going to be difficult.
So how will that, I mean, how should a buyer who has an agent or doesn't have an agent build that relationship so that they can make that not awkward?
Well, you want to look at the value really of what that agent brings. I mean,
right.
The agent's really negotiating making sure the home is in great shape, making sure you're doing your inspections, and both agents offer a role there. And I think it's going to be a mistake. I think a lot of people are going to say, hey, well, I'll just go to the listing agent. I think that's going to be a mistake because they're not going to they think that somehow there's this perception of savings.
Themselves, basically.
Basically, and it's impossible for the agent to really represent, one side over the other, so they really have to be kind of a neutral agent when that happens. But I think when really you have somebody aggressively negotiating on your behalf, like you can have now with a buyer's agent, they're far better off hiring an agent because it's almost like getting a divorce and somebody hires an Ed Brennan ace divorce lawyer, and then you get a facilitator or a moderator to represent you. You really need that agent. I think it's an important part of the real estate transaction for both parties.
So where is the industry, at least with realtors, on this in terms of preparing for that? I mean, what is the plan?
Well, most real estate, all we're seeing now are seminars and what to expect. But I think for consumers, and I've run into it already in
Most
listing.
People probably don't know yet.
They don't. I ran into it in St. Pete. A guy said this agent wanted me to sign a document in order for them to show the house. I said, well, he's premature. He's probably just getting ready for the new change in the law. And I explained to him, you're going to have to sign a document to see any home. Now, you may have it limited to just that home. But I'm wondering
because the prices will slightly vary from one home to another. So that was my next question. You probably just have to do one for every single visit you do.
Yeah, pretty much, or have an agreement with that agent for I'm going to buy a home and you're going to get paid this. So, whatever the amount is that's in there. But keep in mind that the agent can still negotiate that into the deal. We just cannot advertise that in any MLS format, in the comments, in the showing remarks, or anything. You cannot. So you really have to do your due diligence to find out, just to make sure that the agent's going to get paid. And folks, you should make sure your real estate agent is getting paid.
For sure.
Yes.
Well, and we've seen, how many cases have we seen where there's been something's going wrong with a sale and somebody probably did something themselves, and a lot of people have tried to do a lot of them themselves and done well with it, but at the same time, if you get caught with something and you don't have somebody looking out for you.
I think it's a misconception. People think that, I'm going to go directly through the listing agent and I'm going to automatically get a better deal. And that's just not true. That's just not the case.
Need somebody looking out for you.
I do believe you need somebody looking out. If I'm buying a house, I'm an agent myself, and if I wasn't an agent, I would definitely not go through the listing agent. I'm going to hire somebody that's going to represent me and make sure and validate and make sure that the listing agent's being transparent with everything, with the disclosures and the age of the roof. And
now, would that mean if that, would the listing agent then, where do you think their fees, what would that thought process be with setting their fees, knowing, would they have a different fee for somebody who comes directly to them without an agent?
Well, I know I do that myself. I do have a fee that goes that if I'm listed with somebody when I list a home, if I have the buyer, I'll give a discount. And I think that's what a lot of buyers are assuming, but they also assume that that's something that's going to go to them. And a lot of times that discounts really go into the seller. So, my grandmother used to say, what doesn't come out in the rinse comes out in the wash. So during the course of the negotiation, and when you're buying a house or selling a house, I always think the best price, by the way, is when the seller thinks they sold too cheap and the buyer thinks they paid too much. That's probably fair market value.
That is true.
And you need a couple of agents
Tough
really to
lessons
get to
learn.
that.
Vince Arcuri, head of realestate.com. Check him out if you need some help. We appreciate you coming
Hey,
by.
I appreciate it. I love being here.
Yep, I know. You got some time to do the news. A little bit of powder. You can have my job.
I'll do the 11 o'clock newscast tonight.
I know you could. I know you could. Thanks again for dialing us up on our Fox Local app. We appreciate you logging on. And Vince, have a great time. I hope to see you again.
Peace, everybody.
All right, take care. See you soon.